My name is Samuel, and this is the story of how marriage can veer in an unexpected direction, shattering assumptions and forcing choices I never thought I'd make. If you've ever felt invisible, unappreciated, or like you were the only one fighting for something that seemed impossible, my experience may resonate with you. When I married Amber, I believed I had found everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. She was beautiful, confident, and full of life. In the early days, our relationship was electric. We were the couple that couldn't seem to keep their hands off each other, constantly finding ways to be close, laugh together, and share intimate moments. Our connection wasn't just physical, it was emotional, deep. We spent hours talking, lost in conversations about everything and nothing at all. Nights were filled with closeness, and we'd drift off to sleep wrapped in each other's arms. It felt perfect, but over time, that spark began to fade. Amber started pulling away. She'd turn her cheek when I tried to kiss her, claiming she was too tired or simply brushing me off. At first, I chalked it up to stress or maybe a passing phase. After all, every couple faces challenges, right? But the weeks turned into months, and I couldn't remember the last time she kissed me with any real affection. I started keeping a mental tally. Every time she turned away, every time I reached out and felt nothing but coldness. I tried to be patient, giving her space, hoping she would come to me when she was ready. But she never did, and the more I waited, the more distant she became. Living with her began to feel like coexisting with a stranger, someone who barely glanced at me, let alone touched me. At some point, I stopped reaching out entirely. I already knew how she'd react. I couldn't bear the emptiness anymore. One evening, after yet another failed attempt to connect, I finally sat her down. "We need to talk," I said. I laid everything bare. How distant she had become, how much I missed her, and how it felt like we were slipping away from each other. Then, I suggested something I thought might help: therapy. Her reaction was a slap in the face. She looked at me like I was insane. "What intimacy?" she scoffed, her tone dripping with dismissal. I blinked, stunned. Did she really not see what was happening? Was she pretending everything was fine, or did she genuinely believe there was nothing wrong? Before I could respond, she waved me off. "Intimacy isn't just about sex," she said, as if that explained everything. I knew intimacy wasn't just about physical touch, but this was different. This wasn't merely a lack of sex, it was a lack of connection, of affection, of feeling loved. And yet, she acted as if I was the unreasonable one for wanting it. The conversation ended like so many others, me feeling unheard, her acting as if I was imagining problems. I wanted to believe that if I gave her time, she would eventually see what was happening between us. So, I did what I always did. I waited. I thought patience would bring her back to me. But it didn't. The distance between us grew more pronounced, and Amber seemed unaffected. It was as though she had already accepted the state of our marriage, resigned to us simply existing under the same roof without truly living together. Then a thought crossed my mind that I couldn't shake. Was she getting what she needed from someone else? The idea sickened me, but it made sense. People don't stop wanting intimacy altogether. If she wasn't getting it from me, was she finding it somewhere else? Our 5th wedding anniversary arrived on a weekday. Not ideal timing, but I didn't care. I needed to make it special. This felt like the perfect opportunity to turn things around. I took matters into my own hands. Since we both had work that day, I planned everything in advance to surprise her. I hired professional decorators to transform our home into something beautiful: soft candlelight, delicate rose petals, and elegant table settings. It wasn't over the top, but it was warm, inviting, and spoke to the love we used to share. I also arranged for a private chef to prepare a multi-course meal. Amber had always loved fine dining, so I tailored the menu to her favorite tastes. And for the gift, I spent weeks thinking it through. I didn't want something generic. I wanted her to know how much I still cared, how much I paid attention to every detail of her. In the end, I chose a delicate bracelet, engraved with a personal message, something only we would understand. It was supposed to be a symbol of our journey, a reminder of the love we had once shared. But the centerpiece of the evening was the bedroom. I wanted it to feel intimate, comfortable: fresh sheets, dim lighting, and small, thoughtful touches. I imagined us sitting down to dinner, laughing, reminiscing, and maybe even dancing. I hoped that if the moment felt right, we could rediscover each other. Amber finished work 3 hours before I did, so she would be the first to see everything. I expected a call, a text, anything to show she appreciated the effort. But my phone remained silent. No messages, no missed calls. I checked it repeatedly, telling myself she was probably just freshening up, savoring the moment. Any moment now, I thought. Any moment, she'd reach out. But hours passed, and nothing came. Finally, as I was preparing to leave work, my phone vibrated. I grabbed it quickly, a small smile forming as I unlocked the screen. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. Amber was supposed to tell me how touched she was, how much she appreciated everything I'd done, how she couldn't wait for me to get home. Instead, I saw a single message staring back at me. What you did is fine in the bedroom, but I can't touch you, nor kiss you tonight. I hope you're not expecting anything. I read it again, then again, as if hoping it would somehow change. But no, that was it. After all the effort I had put in, after creating a night I thought might pull us back together, this was her response. No gratitude, no acknowledgement, just a flat rejection, before I even had the chance to step through the door. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling something inside me snap. I had spent countless hours, mental energy, and thought, trying to fix something that, apparently, she didn't even care about. This wasn't just about intimacy, it was about respect, about effort, about meeting each other halfway. And once again, I was the only one trying. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to send a long, pleading message asking what was wrong or why she was acting this way. No, I was done being ignored, done feeling like a stranger in my own home. So, instead of responding, I made a choice. A decision that would change everything. I quickly turned to Google, searching for escort services. After scanning a few options, I downloaded an app with great reviews and booked a woman who looked as attractive as Amber. We started chatting immediately. I offered extra payment if she was available that night. After some negotiation, she agreed, and I arranged to pick her up myself. The drive to get her was eerily quiet. When I arrived, a confident, well-dressed woman in her mid-20s slid into the passenger seat. She smelled expensive. I didn't need to ask her name. We didn't need to exchange pleasantries. I kept my focus on the road and said just enough to make sure she knew what I expected. You just need to pay attention to me all night. Ignore everything else. She gave me a quick glance, confused for a moment, but nodded. She wasn't here to ask questions. She was here to do her job. When we arrived at the house, I noticed that Amber had already eaten without me. The table, once set for two, now had only one plate, just another silent rejection. But at that point, I didn't care. Amber looked up from the couch when I entered with the escort. Her eyes flickered with confusion and disbelief, but she didn't speak. She just stared at us, frozen in shock. The escort, however, hesitated, sensing something was wrong. I didn't give them the chance to process it. Don't mind her, I said, turning to the escort. She's just my roommate. That was the moment Amber snapped. Where are you taking her? She shouted, standing up so quickly that her chair scraped loudly against the floor. I didn't answer. I didn't even look at her. Instead, I took the escort's hand and led her straight toward the bedroom. I could hear Amber's footsteps rushing behind me, her voice growing louder with every step. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Samuel, where do you think you're going? Samuel, answer me. Her voice cracked, but I wasn't interested in whatever realization was dawning on her. I opened the bedroom door, ushered the escort inside, and locked it behind me. The banging started immediately. Open this door. Open it now. Her fists hammered against the wood, over and over. I could hear her breathing, ragged and heavy. Was she regretting the way she had treated me? Or was she angry that I had finally stopped begging for her attention? I didn't care. I turned to the escort, ignoring the noise outside. Without a word, I led her to the bed, the soft glow of candlelight still illuminating the room. A room I had originally prepared for Amber. Everything was perfect. Everything had been planned for her. But tonight, it wasn't for her. It was for me. The escort didn't disappoint. She picked up on the mood effortlessly, her touch smooth and her presence warm. As I lost myself in the moment, I realized just how long I had been starved of this kind of connection, how long I had been denied even the smallest bit of intimacy, without any explanation from Amber. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Amber moving around in the house. I stepped out of the bedroom, and there she was, sitting stiffly on the couch, arms crossed, eyes distant. I could tell she wanted to speak, but for the first time in ages, she stayed silent. and I welcomed the silence. I walked past her, not saying a word. The escort had already gathered her things and was waiting by the door. She glanced at me, then at Amber, obviously uncomfortable. But I had already told her not to worry about my roommate. She left without another word. Amber didn't react. She didn't even look up as the door clicked shut behind the escort. From that moment on, the air in the house turned cold. Amber had been distant before, but now she was a ghost. She barely spoke, barely looked at me. And me? I stopped caring. Completely. I stayed out late, sometimes rolling in at 2 or 3 in the morning, sometimes not coming home at all. If Amber was worried, she never showed it. If she was hurt, she never said a word. It was like we were in an unspoken war, both of us waiting for the other to make a move. I thought, surely, she would file for divorce. That would be the next logical step, right? After everything I had done, after the stunt I pulled, any woman would have packed her bags by now. But Amber? She stayed. At first, I assumed she was waiting for the right moment, maybe talking to a lawyer, preparing her exit strategy. But days turned into weeks, and nothing happened. No papers. No serious fights. Just this suffocating silence. It was worse than arguing. At least arguing had emotion, anger, passion, something. But this was emptiness. A hollow, lifeless marriage where neither of us had the energy to pretend anymore. And here's the crazy part. I didn't even care enough to fix it anymore. I had already come to terms with the fact that our marriage was over. If she wasn't going to leave, maybe it was time for me to. One night, I came home late. As expected, the silence greeted me. The cold shoulder, the same routine. But that night, it was different. Amber was waiting. As soon as I stepped inside, she stood up from the couch, arms crossed tightly. Why do you want this marriage to die? Her voice was quiet, but heavy with a question she'd been holding in for far too long. I couldn't help but laugh. Of all the things she could have said, that was what she chose. I dropped my keys on the table, took my time slipping off my shoes. Anything to delay the argument I knew was coming. Finally, I looked at her. You think I want this marriage to die? I repeated, shaking my head. Amber, you killed it. I just stopped pretending it was still alive. She flinched, but I kept going. You've been cold, detached, ungrateful. You act like I'm just some guy you happen to live with. I tried. I waited. I gave you space. And you pushed me away every time. She opened her mouth, ready to argue or deflect, but I didn't let her. I'm tired, Amber. Tired of trying. Tired of waiting for you to act like my wife again. Tired of making room for your attitude while getting nothing in return. So if you want to leave, leave. I gestured toward the door. You've already checked out emotionally. You might as well make it official. I expected her to explode, to yell at me, maybe even storm off and grab a bag. But she didn't. She just stood there, silent. Then, to my surprise, her expression shifted. It was hurt. I don't want to leave, she whispered. I don't know how we got here. She paused, collecting her thoughts, before adding, maybe we should see a counselor, a therapist, something. Her voice was shaky, but there was sincerity in it. I should have felt relief, right? A few months ago, I would have jumped at that suggestion. But now I wasn't so sure. I had spent so long chasing her, trying to fix something that felt broken beyond repair. And now that I had tasted a little bit of freedom, I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. I looked at Amber, the woman I once adored, the marriage I had once valued more than anything, and said nothing. For the first time, I asked myself, do I even want to save this? Or is it already too late? I'm not here to pretend I was the perfect husband or that I handled everything in the best way. No, I'm going to be real with you. This situation brought out a side of me I didn't even know existed. But in the process, I learned some harsh lessons. And if sharing them can help someone avoid making the same mistakes, then it's worth talking about. First, never push your partner to the wall. If things aren't working in a relationship, be honest about it. Talk. Communicate. But don't shut your partner out and expect them to keep taking it forever. People have limits. When you ignore their needs, when you make them feel unwanted, unloved, like they don't matter, you're playing a dangerous game. One day, that person will stop trying. And when they stop trying, they stop caring. And once that happens, you may not be able to fix it. Second, if you're tired of a relationship, don't use coldness as a weapon. If Amber had come to me and said, Samuel, I don't feel the same anymore, or I need space, or even, I don't think I want this marriage anymore, it would have been painful, but at least it would have been clear. Instead, she shut me out while expecting me to stay, waiting for something that was never coming. That kind of behavior breeds resentment. And once resentment enters a marriage, it's like poison. It doesn't just hurt one person, it destroys both of you. Now, I'm not sugarcoating my actions. What I did was reckless, I know that. I didn't handle things the right way, but understand this. I was pushed to my breaking point. A person can only beg for love and intimacy for so long before they decide they'd rather stop begging altogether. Some of you might say I went too far. Some of you might say Amber got exactly what she deserved. But regardless of your opinion, the truth is this whole experience made me see marriage differently. It made me ask myself, when love dies, is it better to fight for it or to let it go? And that's the question I leave with you today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you have handled it differently? Would you have stayed and kept trying? Or would you have walked away? And don't forget to like and share this video. Someone out there might need to hear this.